This one's about the insecure one. The insecure one. Insecurity is it's a very strange thing to have when one possesses it, because insecurity means that basically there's no real sense that when you walk or when you go to lie down, that whatever is there is going to hold you, that you are basically not secure within your innermost being, that you're going to be safe. So, in light of that, that sense of insecurity drives people to become very survivalist. They want to survive the fear, and it is an illusion, of course, but they survive the illusion of being unsafe by creating certain a battleground. To them, it's a war, it's a battle, it's conflict. It is, it is, it is, um, it is rather dangerous. Now, there's different elements that join themselves to insecurity. Well, one of these elements of an insecure one that can make them very dangerous, especially from young, is envy or jealousy. If you ever watch kids that are playing in a pen, the mud and the sand pit, right? Is that some kids don't know how to play well, and they will if and it's they've shown shows on this, and they even have. I mean, I've kind of seen it when I was young too, that they take sand and they throw it near a kid, and then they laugh, right? It's funny, right? Of course, the other kids laugh too, right? Now, the one receiving the sand usually is left kind of dumbfounded and kind of like, huh? So they, just to make themselves feel still acceptable, they'll laugh along with what just happened. But it creates a sense to the one the sand is thrown at, become very a sense of feeling threatened, not insecure. I found the majority of the times the insecure people are the ones throwing the sand, right? They're the ones when you're growing up with them, they're the ones throwing out little insults. They're the ones kind of like watching you. And this is very dangerous, because even when you're young, you're not really noticing as much as when you get older. But they're the ones that's watching you. And I've seen pictures of I've seen two pictures of two people I knew very strongly. Both of them, in the picture when they were young, they had their forefinger sticking out and sticking down. And I was to learn later on their accusers. When I saw that finger, I also saw the evil eye in them. What they're very good at doing, they're very good at pointing, and they're all about you. You ever heard people do that? You this, you that, I can go on and on, but it starts with the you. Their intentional focus is you, right? They can't. They have an inability, and a stupid inability, as a matter of fact, to look at themselves, because it's very hard to look at themselves, because the more insecure they are, the more envious they become, the more uglier they are. So at that point, it's too awful to look at that ugliness. Even from young, kids don't want to. And by the way, it's amazing about insecurity, is that for the life of me, I don't understand. You would think when people know that they're so ugly and they become dislikable and they become repulsive to other people, they will become more insecure because of the reaction. Some people call it reactionary abuse, right? They'll react to their abuse, right? But not so. They will find as they're growing up many different ways to make excuses for who they are becoming. And they are the ones as you get older, and I've noticed this too, to tell you as it is. They'll even tell you that. Well, I just tell it as it is. Well, I don't pussyfoot around, right? And these comedy clowns, basically, should you point out something, which is a lot of, and they do have it, they really do create a nice long record of offenses in their life. Dare you bring it up? Watch hell unleash on you, to the point that they'll not only dip you in mud and shit, but they'll make sure you start acting like shit while you're in the interaction of their garbage, the garbage going on. The thing is, insecurity goes in so many different directions. Mothers and fathers, I mean, like, it helps to really forgive in a lot of ways, but a lot of things will happen in our life, because a lot of times we really do come to terms with the fact that really we weren't really dealing with a lot of healthiness. The world is not a very healthy place. Only some people are healthy. The dynamics that goes on in every different structure has a whole host of unhealthy weirdness that goes on that people would call interaction, but it's unhealthiness, right? When mothers and fathers, depending on whom you've had in your life, is that when they are the addiction, they're basically the authority. When they're basically also themselves insecure, they will if your person's become more secure, they're going to hate you for it. Because one thing that is so important, that the people who don't grow up, they so lie to themselves into believing that no one is really that good. So therefore, why should I change? I don't have to change, right? So they will beat you down to their level in any kind of interaction you have with them. The golden child within an insecure family structure will be the insecure, arrogant, ignorant, stupid, ridiculous, pathetic, and envious. And why envy is so horrible in any given aspect of communication with another human being, it has a way of seething within. How dare you become better than me? So they turn what you may be doing on your own personal level into a competition, into some kind of a slight, that you've stepped beyond the boundaries of their. And this is a nervy and ridiculous thing they have to. They set a tone and a picture of you that they expect you to live out the rest of your life. They don't see you better or different. So when you start breaking that picture before them and smashing it, crushing it, ripping it up, throwing it in their face, they basically think that's what you're doing. You're basically throwing it in their face, but you're not. You're very light, and you're becoming better and blooming is what throws it in their face. It's a slight. It always will be a slight. They're always looking for some kind of conflict. And they're very good at gossip. They're very good. They'll talk about other people. They love to find ways to get other people involved in malicious gossip and malicious interaction. If they can, and see, because misery loves company, if they can gather a nice little army around them as to why they're so right, they will do a lot of things. They call it a smear campaign. They will smear you enough to make you, and see, this is where we start to go off into another avenue, because it's not all natural world activity going on. When you start to know involved in this supernatural world, insecure people have learned in many ways. Jesus even said, from the hearts of men comes witchcraft. He named witchcraft. Witchcraft is basically occultic. When they start to use utterances against you behind the scenes, they're going to cause harm because they're doing it with intensity. Okay. The thing is about witchcraft or any kind of malicious behavior, and by the way, maliciousness comes from envy. When you do well in front, and people call them narcissists, I say I'm talking about insecure, but of course it's still the same thing. But the root of it all is insecurity. Well, it could be other things too, but they feel more safe with you being defeated than with you doing well. Their pathetic little world that they live within has to have everything a certain way. And they kind of like little retards sitting around with their little toys and placing them in different places and talking to the little toys. They never grow up. They never grow up from the sandbox, right? And as long as you're in their life and you're having the you're creating or you're allowing the ability to be impacted by them, they can throw the sand at you, and that the impact of the sand on you will cause the reaction that they're hoping to see, which is your defeat. The more that they can shame you, and I just had a recent conflict with one of these things in my life. And although I spent a lot of my life growing and budding and becoming, I helped this person financially in a very big way throughout his life. And he was able, and he's found such a interesting way of turning around the stories to suit his narrative, how he saw it, that he was a victim through it all. And even though he was invasive, and you know the thing about insecure and jealous and envious, they're invasive. They're like predators. They're very an invasive species. They come upon you whatever you have, and they will eat up. They will basically, like marauders. They will take over your good stuff, and then they'll take off. And they don't remember or care to even keep record of all the benefits you've given to them, when in reality, they have given you squat. They've given you nothing. As a matter of fact, what they do in general to your life is they cause a whole lot of stress, downtime, wasted time. And I've seen in my own life, I've seen some really strange supernatural craziness go on in my family, from my family onto my life. I've seen it when I had my own condominium, my pipes are being rotted out for no reason. The bills, jobs, I started losing jobs for no reason. I mean, the weirdness that was going on, even stuff that was even happening within the condominium. I saw stuff started to happen to my animal. Even the vets were saying, they said, I've never seen this before. Strange rashes breaking out to my little dog. And I was so sad about it because I thought, wow, if I really came from such an unsafe and an evil environment, I I felt so bad and guilty that I brought this dog into it. The dog managed to live a long life, but there was some suffering involved, and even the vets couldn't figure it out. And it was supernatural. It was witchcraft. It was witchcraft. That kind of maliciousness stems from insecurity. So don't let anybody fool you that when you have some guy with something on his wall that claims he's an expert on conditions and start to tell the insecure person they're okay. They just need to be, well, get better. Don't be fooled. You'll know insecure people. And every one of us in some way, shape, or form get insecurity trying to affect us in our lives, right? But I'm talking about the one who is really insecure. And from that insecure place, the motivation behind it will do a lot of malicious, strange, antisocial behavior that will cause you to question them in a very big way. And you ought to question them because they're very unsafe. They're so dangerous. They're so dangerous to the point that they can do physical harm to another person and think that what they're doing is justified. That's how dangerous they are. So, whatever your environment may have come from, I inspire you today that the facing the truth head on is the first step to finding the truth that sets you free as you move on. First, sometimes you got to head or face something head on before you move on. And there's a much bigger and healthier world out there. And trust me, there is a lot of people on this planet who are extremely healthy. We just need to find them. But you can't do that when you're distracted by the unhealthy ones. Have a good day. Like and subscribe. Thank you.